And that dopamine rush makes you feel good. It puts you in a trance. And sometimes when you're in that trance of compulsive sexual behavior, hours could go by in what's seemingly feeling like 10 minutes. Have you ever went online and searched for what is sex addiction? Or did you ever ask on Google, am I sex addicted? Or what are the symptoms of sex addiction? Have you ever wondered if maybe you have sex addiction, that your sexual compulsive behaviors are out of control, your life is becoming unmanageable, and you're wondering, am I sex addicted? What we're going to talk about today is 3 questions that I will answer for you. The first one is, what is sex addiction? Number 2 is, why is it here? And number 3, how can I begin healing if I have sex addiction? We're going to talk about those 3 questions today. In the meantime, I'm behavioral health and sex addiction recovery coach Rob Lopicola, and the spell of sex addiction has been broken in my life. I have many, many years now where I have redesigned my way of thinking, redesigned my behaviors. In essence, I redesigned my entire life, and I was guided by a coach named Tony, who gave me a whole new mindset, a whole new way of looking at myself, my past, my addiction, and my future. And I was able to change how my mind works to break free from the spell of sex addiction and other addictions as well. I was multi-addicted to methamphetamine and alcohol as well, which in essence fed my compulsive sexual behaviors. Sex addiction was my core addiction. And I'm here now to help people like you who are struggling, who have questions, who feel lost, perhaps broken, maybe hopeless and desperate. You've tried stopping so many times these behaviors and you just haven't been able to be successful. Maybe you stop at times, but you just can't stay stopped, and you're battling with a situation you feel there's no way out. And you keep searching because there has to be. You know there has to be, and you're looking for the solution. So today, hopefully we can get in the solution and I can help you out to develop a new perspective by answering your questions. I am a certified life coach, behavioral health coach, and I specialize in sex addiction recovery. So the first question for today is, what is sex addiction? And, it's not an addiction to sex itself. There are behaviors you're addicted to, but it's not sex across the board. It's also, if you think about sex a lot, that doesn't mean you're sex addicted. If you like having a lot of sex and perhaps you're a little extreme in your sexual behaviors and your wife or your husband or your partner wants you to slow down a little bit, that doesn't mean you're sex addicted. Sex addiction, in essence, is an involvement, a pathological relationship with certain compulsive sexual behaviors that you seemingly are unable to stop, that's causing havoc in your life, that's causing unmanageability, chaos in your life, and certain sexual behaviors that when you're done and you're finished with those behaviors, you beat yourself up, you feel inferior, you self-deprecate, you feel shame and guilt and regret. When you have all those feelings about certain sexual behaviors, it's likely that you have some form of sex addiction. So to define what is sex addiction, the World Health Organization classifies it as a mental health disorder, and it is, in a sense, a obsessive compulsive disorder in the brain, where now you obsess and then you're compulsive about certain sexual behaviors. Much how it's a behavioral addiction, much how food addiction. People that are addicted to food, they're not addicted to all food. They're generally addicted to certain foods. And most foods that we get addicted to are sugars and carbohydrates, like ice cream and cookies and cake. Maybe fried food, the high carbs, rice, pasta, bread, bread and butter. When you go to a restaurant, you're eating all that bread and butter. That can become addictive. So food addicts aren't addicted to all food, but they're addicted to certain foods. The behavioral addiction picks and chooses what their drug of choice is, per se. Even drug addicts, they're generally addicted to certain drugs. Not all drugs, some may, but not all drugs. When I was drug addicted, my drug of choice was methamphetamine. And I did other drugs, I dabbled around, but methamphetamine was my core or drug of choice, my core addiction with drug use. Alcohol, most of my drinking was shots and Absolute Red Bulls. I wasn't a beer drinker, I didn't like beer, so I even had my alcohol of choice. Sex addiction is the same way. You have your sex of choice. You have certain behaviors that you choose that give you the rush or the fix. So sex addiction is a behavioral addiction. The World Health Organization does classify it as a mental health disorder. And it's addicted to just certain sexual behaviors that give you a fix, that make you high, make you feel high. And in essence, when you are involved in certain sexual behaviors, you do get high. Your brain releases massive amounts of dopamine, and that dopamine rush makes you feel good. It puts you in a trance. And sometimes when you're in that trance of compulsive sexual behavior, hours could go by in what's seemingly feeling like 10 minutes. You ever watch porn and 5 hours go by and it felt like 20 minutes? Or you're having cyber sex or sexting, or you're on Grindr or Tinder or Bumble and you're searching for your next sexual encounter or a date to save you from your loneliness. You're looking and hours go by and you spend hours and hours. And now it's 3 a.m. You got to get up at 7 for work. You can't believe it, and then you turn it off, and 5 minutes later you just want to look again, and you just hate it, and it just distorts time. And all of that, cyber sex and pornography, also distorts reality. But sex addiction is an addiction to certain sexual behaviors that give you the fix, and you seemingly are unable to stop those behaviors. Whether it's prostitution, cruising in parks, bathroom, public restrooms, pornography, voyeurism, exhibitionism, sexting, cyber sex, all of these things are behaviors that you can become addicted to. Sex overall, you're not addicted to, but there are those behaviors. So it's very, very good if you feel you may be sex addicted to write a list of the certain behaviors that you find addictive. So if you're married or you're in a relationship, perhaps you're not addicted to having sex with your partner. You have balance there, but you just can't stop going to the porn movie shop. You just can't stop cruising for prostitutes. You just can't stop going to the strip club and giving all your money on a Friday night to a stripper up there. But otherwise, having sex with your partner is not addictive. Just those behaviors are. So write a list of all the behaviors you're addicted to. You want to get to know your sex addiction. You want to get to know the pattern of your sex addiction. So once you know the problem, then you can start leading into the solution. And I'm not going to get into this today, but the sex addiction, the compulsive sexual behaviors are not your problem. Your problem is not the sex addiction. That is a symptom of the problem. Your problem is dealing with you, dealing with your trauma, dealing with your internal pain. See, that's the issue. Sex, your sexually compulsive behaviors, are just masking really what's going on deep down inside. And that goes into, why is it here? Why is sex addiction here? Why do you have sex addiction? And it's actually simple. And I truly believe simplicity is key. We have a tendency to make everything so complicated, but really it's simple. At some point in your life, probably young, in your adolescence years or teen years, maybe a little later, but you discovered that acting out in this sexual behavior made you feel good. You felt good watching pornography, or any of those compulsive behaviors made you feel good. Why? Because you didn't feel good. You didn't like yourself, or you felt abandoned, or you were very lonely and you didn't know how to deal with loneliness. Maybe you were abused at home. Maybe you were sexually abused as a child, and on some level that distorted how your brain works. It distorted your perceptions. It altered your brain chemicals to some degree, and you found acting out makes you feel good. And it feels good because it's releasing dopamine in the brain. And then all addictions are progressive. It gets more and more involved in those behaviors or substances because your brain wants more dopamine release, and your body gets physiologically addicted to it, and you seek out more escapism away from your trauma, your pain, your loneliness, whatever it is you're feeling. And then while you're progressing in your addiction, Now you start beating yourself up more and more. More self-deprecation, more internal dialogue of self-abuse, hating yourself, inferiority, shame, guilt, regret, all of those feelings, secrecy. Perhaps you're having affairs or cheating on your partner and you hate yourself for it. Now you start wearing masks and now you're fake. In the world, you're fake. You feel like you really don't fit in. And you feel like an imposter. If they knew what I was doing, they would fire me or my partner would leave me. So as the addiction progresses, all of this starts happening. So now that feeds the addictive process. Now you want to act out more to feel better because you're feeling worse. And your brain wants more dopamine. So you see the trend here? So your sexual behaviors will get more progressive. Your drug use, well, you'll do more and more. Well, you'll progress to a more powerful drug, a more intense drug. Same thing with alcohol. You'll drink more and more and more. You'll start making promises and not keep them. You'll progress in your alcoholism. You'll progress in your sex addiction, and you'll progress in your drug use. That's what happens. It's here. The reason why your sex addiction is here is, one, you learned it makes you feel good. And initially, it may have taken you away from some of the pain you weren't able to deal with, you weren't able to cope with. It was overwhelming for you, whatever that pain and trauma was. Now you're an adult. Now you have years of a progressive addiction. And now it's here to continuously help you deal with your trauma and pain. To some degree, and this is an interesting way of looking at this, to some degree, your sex addiction is here to help you deal with you, to deal with the trauma and pain. See, the sex addiction thinks, if you were to make it a subpersonality or personify sex addiction, you look at it like it's destroying you, which the behaviors are, but the actual, if you personified sex addiction, that subpersonality, it's really here to protect you. It's really here to make you feel good. And you do feel good, but it doesn't realize it's truly destroying you. You know now it's destroying you. Now you get to the point in your life where I have to do something about this, because at one point in my life, this made me feel good. At one point in my life, this was kind of a coping skill. But now at this point in my life, it's destroying me. It's going against me, tearing my life apart. So now we have to develop a new relationship with our sex addiction. We have to come to understand it. And it starts with understanding the behaviors we're addicted to. And why is it here? We come to understand it's really here to protect us. I have a book that you can get on Amazon. I'm not here to sell it to you. I just thought of it. It's called Pioneering a New Path, Embracing Your Meth and Sex Addiction as a Protector. This book is phenomenal. I recommend you get it on Amazon. I'll have the link below. And it really gives you a whole new perspective of looking at your sex addiction or your meth addiction, even your alcoholism, whatever it is, as an ally, not your enemy. I mean, how's that even possible? Pioneering a New Path goes into that. So I suggest you get the book if you want to. It's cheap. I think the soft cover is like $10, and something that might give you a really healthy perspective. So there we have those two questions we discussed. And the third is, how do we begin healing? And that takes us into, why is it here? It takes us into developing a relationship with our sex addiction and realizing it's not our enemy. It's here to protect us. And we start our healing by, one, developing, if you will, a healthy dialogue with that subpersonality sex addiction. And again, that's in Pioneering a New Path. But developing a dialogue, developing a relationship with it, not running from it, not trying to kill it, because it's a part of you. Did you ever have a conversation with yourself? I'm sure you did, right? Have you ever had multiple conversations with yourself? Well, if I go do that, this will happen. Yeah, but if I do that, I think you really should do this. And you're making a decision, but there's like 3 or 4 different conversations going on. By the way, that's normal and that's healthy and not insane, okay? That's a normal thing. Sex addiction is one of those voices, if you will. It's one of those subpersonalities. So it's a part of you. And like 12-step groups talk about it, always doing push-ups in the corner, and it's strong. But you can actually develop a relationship with it and teach it new ways to cope with trauma and stress. So that's one aspect of how to begin healing. But other ways of healing are confronting your addiction honestly, sharing it with another person, getting honest, breaking the secrets. Remember something, sex addiction thrives in isolation, but recovery and transformation thrive in connection. So you need to connect with others and share your truth. Share how you feel about your compulsive sexual behaviors. Share how you feel about yourself. Share your shame, your guilt, your regret, your self-loathing. Share it. Get it out of you with someone who loves you unconditionally, someone who can talk with you objectively and understand where you're coming from and maybe love you through it and give you a new perspective. You need to get it out. And you may need to, in addition to getting a coach, like I coach people who are battling sex addiction, getting a counselor or a therapist. Perhaps you have other issues. You're struggling with depression, and sex addiction was a way of medicating your depression. So maybe you could see a psychiatrist and talk about going on a medication to alleviate depression. Now, that's not my area of specialization. I'm just sharing with you that as you're recovering and as you're healing, you develop a relationship with your sex addiction. You bring everything to the light. You get honest with someone you trust. You talk openly about what behaviors you've been addicted to and how you feel about yourself. You may need to see a counselor or a therapist to deal with the trauma and the pain you've been running from. EMDR therapy is great for trauma and PTSD. You may need to see a psychiatrist because maybe you're battling depression. And as you experience freedom from your addiction, you may come to terms with the fact, I think I'm depressed. I need help with the depression, and perhaps a psychiatrist to put you on some medication, like Wellbutrin or something. That's up to your psychiatrist and you in discussion. And then get into a coaching program where you can start setting goals for yourself that are achievable, and you can start changing your life, start changing how you think, start changing your behaviors. And I will tell you this, as you want to progress, or as you progress in changing your life and transforming your life, you need to understand this very clearly. The mindset you have today that brought this addiction to this point, that brought you to a point of hopelessness, that brought you to a point of despair, that brought you to this chaotic, unmanageable area in your life, that mindset will not fix you nor the addiction. That mindset is destructive. You need to change your mindset. You need help with that. You need to take on new strategies and techniques, and you need to learn how to apply those strategies and techniques. And that's what I do. I was horribly sex addicted. My coach told me I was one of the worst cases of sex addiction he's ever witnessed. I was addicted to so many sexual behaviors, and I was unmanageable, lost everything. Moral compass was done, gone, and I lived like an animal with my meth addiction and sex addiction and alcoholism. I went from prestige and power to, as an NBC weatherman, international fitness model, to homeless, bankrupt, on park benches, wrapped deeply in addiction. And here I am, many, many years later, rebuilt a beautiful life, a life that I'm proud of today, free from these addictions. I don't act out in compulsive sexual behaviors, nor do I drink, nor do I do drugs. And I love this life, and if it wasn't good, I go right back to where you are. Just want to give you some hope. I promise you, on the other side, life is great, but you have to get to the other side. You have to go from the life you're at now with chaos to a life where you can prosper as a thriving individual, experiencing finally healthy sexual expression, free from guilt, shame, and the isolation. We need to transform you. So you need help to do that. And you might want to search out all these different areas of help. And it's okay. It's okay if you're battling with compulsive sexual behaviors. It's okay if you have a sex addiction. It doesn't make you an immoral person or a bad person or a disgusting person or a hateful person. You've probably been telling you that stuff, and you have this perception that sex addicts are horrible people, and they're not. You have an addiction like anybody can have any addiction. Great, wonderful, successful, beautiful people can have an addiction that has progressed to the point where their life is about to fall apart or is falling apart. So you are a beautiful person that just happens to have this addiction, and you've let it get out of control, and now you want to change and transform your life. And if you're ready, if you're done, if you really want something new, if you really want a new design, a new way of thinking, I want you to start with what I'm offering you, a free 30-minute 10-step strategy session. It'll begin the healing process of your relationship with compulsive sexual behaviors. So take a look at it. It's on my website. I'll have the link below. It's on my website, sexaddictionrelief.com. It's a 30-minute free 10-step strategy session. You will love it. And if you are battling sex addiction and you're looking for new ways and strategies and techniques to transform your life, I offer tons and tons of information on this channel. So subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Hit that like button. And if you want, throw me a comment. A lot of people aren't very open about their sex addiction or their compulsive sexual behaviors. If you want to throw me a comment if you have any questions, please feel free. I'm so grateful you spent time with me today. I'm posting a video every Tuesday. Sometimes I might miss a week, but every Tuesday I post a video for you. So be sure to stick around. And have a great night. Have a great day, morning, whatever time it is for you. And I'll see you again next week.